Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s horizon and looked out at the empty space ahead. Stars filled the darkness like tiny lights, but none of them held the answers he was looking for. For 300 years, humans had searched the galaxy for other smart life. They had found nothing but silence. "Captain, we're coming up on the Kepler 442 system," said Danny Rodriguez from his seat at the communications panel. Danny was young but good at his job. He had been with Jake's crew for 2 years now. "Take us in slowly," Jake said. "Let's see what this place has to offer." The U.E.'s Horizon was humanity's newest exploration ship. It was fast, well-armed, and packed with the best science equipment Earth could build. Jake's crew had been traveling for 6 months, checking star systems that might hold signs of life. So far, they had found nothing but empty planets and dead rocks floating in space. That Lisa Carter looked up from her science station. She was the ship's chief science officer and one of the smartest people Jake had ever met. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from the 4th planet. There might be something worth looking at down there." Jake nodded. "Kate, how are our engines doing?" Kate Sullivan, the ship's engineer, checked her screens. "All systems are running fine, Captain. We can make orbit around that planet whenever you're ready." The 4th planet in the Kepler 442 system looked like Earth in some ways. It had water, an atmosphere, and the right temperature for life. But as they got closer, Jake could see that something was wrong. The planet was too quiet. No radio signals came from its surface. No lights showed where cities might be. "Take us down to the surface," Jake ordered. "But stay ready to leave fast if we need to." The landing party included Jake, Lisa, Danny, and 2 security guards named Bob Turner and Alice Park. They wore spacesuits even though the air was safe to breathe. Jake had learned not to take chances on strange worlds. They landed near what looked like ruins of old buildings. The structures were huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were made of a gray metal that didn't rust or break down over time. Strange symbols covered the walls, but none of them looked familiar. "How old do you think these are?" Jake asked Lisa as they walked through the empty streets. Lisa ran her scanner over one of the buildings. She frowned at the results. "Captain, this is impossible. These structures are over 5 million years old, but the design shows they were built by intelligent beings." Danny found more ruins a few blocks away. These looked different, like they came from a different time. "Captain, you need to see this," he called over the radio. Jake and Lisa ran to where Danny was standing. In front of them was a massive building that looked like a library or museum. The doors were still open, as if someone had just walked out and never came back. Inside, they found something that made Jake's blood run cold. The walls were covered with pictures that told a story. The pictures showed different alien races, all living and building cities. But in every picture series, the same thing happened. The aliens would grow and spread to other planets. Then something would come from the dark spaces between stars. After that, the pictures showed only empty worlds. "Lisa, are you seeing this?" Jake whispered. Lisa was recording everything with her scanner. Her hands were shaking. "Captain, I count at least 50 different species shown in these pictures. All of them are gone now. All of them disappeared the same way." Alice Park, one of the security guards, found another room filled with star maps. The maps showed hundreds of star systems, each one marked with symbols. Most of the symbols were crossed out with red marks. "What do you think the red marks mean?" Bob Turner asked. Jake studied the maps. A cold feeling grew in his stomach. "I think they mean dead. I think these marks show where intelligent life used to exist." They spent hours going through the ruins. In every building, they found the same story told over and over. smart species would grow and spread across the stars. Then something would come and wipe them out completely. The pattern had been going on for millions of years. "Captain," Danny called from outside. "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It's big, and it's moving toward our part of the galaxy." Jake and his team ran back to their shuttle. They flew up to the horizon as fast as they could. On the bridge, Danny showed them what he had found. "It's a fleet of ships, Captain. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're coming from the direction of the galactic core. At their current speed, they'll reach human space in about 6 months." Lisa was still looking at the data from the planet. "Captain, I think I know what happened to all those alien races. And I think it's about to happen to us." Jake stared at the sensor readings. The ships were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, like they were controlled by one mind. Whatever they were, they had been traveling through space for a very long time. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed. We need to warn everyone." As the horizon jumped to faster-than-light travel, Jake thought about what they had learned. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. They weren't alone, but they might be the last intelligent species left alive. And something was coming to change that the ruins on the planet had shown. The same pattern dozens of times. Smart species would explore the stars and build great civilizations. Then the dark ships would come, and everything would go silent. The galaxy was full of empty worlds that had once been home to thinking beings. Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. Humans had always been fighters. They had survived ice ages, wars, diseases, and disasters. Now they faced their biggest challenge yet. "Danny, send a message to Earth Command," Jake said. "Tell them we're coming home with important news. Tell them to get ready." Lisa was still studying the alien pictures. "Captain, there's something else. In all these pictures, the species that got wiped out were all similar. They were organized, predictable, logical. What if the thing that destroys civilizations has never met a species like humans?" "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Humans are chaotic. We're unpredictable. We do things that don't make sense. Maybe that's our strength." Jake nodded slowly. Maybe Lisa was right. Maybe being human, with all their crazy ideas and wild emotions, would be enough to survive what was coming. The U's horizon raced through space toward Earth, carrying the most important message in human history. They were not alone in the universe, but they might be the galaxy's last hope. Admiral Susan Blake sat in her command chair on Orbital Command Station 1, high above Earth. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Morrison and his crew returned with their terrible news. The whole human military was now working day and night to prepare for what was coming. "Admiral, we have an update from the science teams," said Commander Paul Gray, her second in command. Paul was a good officer who never panicked, even when things looked bad. Susan looked at the reports on her screen. Dr. Alex Chun, Earth's best expert on alien life, had been studying the data from the ruins. What he found made the situation even worse than they thought. "The pattern is clear," Dr. Chun had written in his report. "These aliens, which we now call Reapers, come through the galaxy every 50 million years. They find any species that has learned to travel between stars, and they destroy them completely. Not just kill them, but remove every trace that they ever existed." Susan felt sick reading the report. "How many species do we think they've destroyed?" Paul checked his notes. Dr. Chun estimates at least 1,000 different intelligent species. Over the past 50 million years, maybe more. The first sign that the Reapers were close came from the Proxima Centauri system. Proxima Centauri was humanity's first colony outside of Earth's solar system. 3 million humans live there on 2 planets and dozens of space stations. Admiral, called Lieutenant Mary Foster from the communications station. We're losing contact with Proxima Centauri. All their signals just stopped. Susan felt her heart sink. When did the signals stop? About 6 hours ago. We sent ships to check, but they haven't reported back yet. 6 hours later, a badly damaged scout ship arrived at Earth. The pilot was Commander Rick Thompson, a veteran space pilot who had seen many dangerous missions. But when he stepped off his ship, he looked like he had seen something that broke. His mind. They're all gone, Rick said to the emergency meeting of Earth's leaders. Every single person in the Proxima system. But the planets are still there. The buildings are still there. Even the pets and plants are still alive. But every human being has just disappeared. President Maria Santos leaned forward in her chair. What do you mean disappeared? Rick's hands shook as he showed them video recordings from his ship. I flew through the whole system. I went inside buildings, checked hospitals, schools, even private homes. There are meals still sitting on tables, like people just vanished in the middle of eating. But there are no bodies, no blood, no signs of fighting. It's like every human in the system just stopped existing. Dr. Chun studied the videos carefully. This matches what we found in the ancient ruins. The Reapers don't destroy planets or buildings. They only take the intelligent life forms. Everything else stays exactly the same. Susan felt cold fear growing in her chest. How is that even possible? We don't know, Dr. Chun admitted. Their technology is far beyond anything we understand. They can remove living beings from a planet without damaging anything else around them. Over the next 2 weeks, the same thing happened to 4 more human colonies. The pattern was always identical. The Reaper ships would arrive in a system, and within hours, every human would disappear. Buildings, machines, and even animals were left untouched, but the people were gone forever. Rick Thompson volunteered to lead a secret mission to watch the Reapers work. He took a small stealth ship called the UES Shadow and hid in an asteroid field near the colony of New Boston. When the Reaper ships arrived, Rick recorded everything. The Reaper fleet was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The ships were huge, each one the size of a city. They were black as space itself and moved without making any sound. There were hundreds of them, all moving in perfect formation like they shared one mind. They don't use weapons, Rick reported. Back to Earth. They just fly over the planet and shine some kind of light down on the surface. The light passes through buildings and walls like they're not even there. When the light touches a person, that person just fades away like smoke. Dr. Amy Foster, who studied human behavior, watched Rick's recordings with growing fear. Look at how organized they are. Every ship knows exactly what to do. There's no wasted movement, no confusion, no mistakes. They've done this so many times that it's become automatic. Susan realized that humanity's normal military tactics would be useless. Our weapons can't even scratch their ships. They have some kind of energy shield that stops everything we throw at them. President Santos called an emergency meeting of all Earth's leaders, representatives from every nation, every major corporation, and every military organization gathered to hear the terrible news. The Reaper fleet is moving through human space at a steady pace, Susan reported to the assembled leaders. They're taking one star system every few days. At this rate, they'll reach Earth in less than 3 months. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Earth had 8 billion people living on it, plus another 2 billion on Mars and the moon colonies. If the Reapers reached Earth, the entire human species would disappear forever. What are our options? Asked General Frank Martinez, head of Earth's ground forces. Our conventional weapons are useless, Susan said. We've tried everything. Nuclear missiles, laser cannons, kinetic projectiles. Nothing gets through their shields. We need a completely different approach. Dr. Chun raised his hand. I've been studying the Reaper technology from Rick's recordings. I think they're not really alive. They're machines following programming that was created millions of years ago. They follow the same patterns because that's what they were built to do. Amy Foster nodded. That could be important. Machines follow rules. If we can figure out what their rules are, maybe we can find a way around them. Susan looked around the room at Earth's leaders. These were the smartest, bravest people humanity had to offer, but even they looked scared and lost. How do you fight an enemy that has been destroying civilizations for millions of years? We need volunteers, Susan said finally. People willing to get close to the Reaper ships and plant devices that might help us understand how they work. It will be extremely dangerous. Most of the volunteers probably won't come back. The response surprised everyone. Within hours, thousands of people volunteered for the suicide mission. Pilots, scientists, engineers, and soldiers from all over. Human space offered to sacrifice their lives for a chance to save their species. Rick Thompson was the first to volunteer. I've seen what these things can do, he said. If there's any chance we can stop them, I want to be part of it. Susan felt a mix of pride and sadness looking at all the brave volunteers. We're going to need every advantage we can get. The Reapers have been doing this for millions of years. We're going to get one chance, and it has to work perfectly. As the Reaper fleet continued its slow, methodical advance toward Earth, humanity prepared for the most important battle in their history. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and facing an enemy they barely understood. But they had something the Reapers had never encountered before, the chaotic, unpredictable, never-give-up spirit of the human race. President Maria Santos stood before the United Earth Assembly, looking out at representatives from every nation and colony in human space. The great hall was packed with people who had traveled from across the galaxy to hear what might be humanity's final plan. My fellow humans, Maria began, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. We face the greatest threat our species has ever known. 17 of our colonies have already been harvested. The Reaper fleet continues to move toward Earth, and our conventional weapons cannot stop them. The hall was completely silent. Everyone knew the facts, but hearing them spoken aloud made the situation feel more real and more terrifying. Dr. Amy Foster sat in the front row, holding a thick folder of research notes. For weeks, she had been studying everything they knew about the Reapers, looking for any weakness they could exploit. What she found gave humanity a small ray of hope. The Reapers follow patterns Amy had explained to the Emergency Council the day before. Every species they've harvested developed in similar ways. They explored space, built colonies, created organized governments, and then got wiped out. But humans are different. After Maria's speech, Amy stood up to address the assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the Reapers have never encountered a species quite like us. Every other intelligent race they destroyed was logical, organized, and predictable. Humans are chaotic, creative, and we do things that don't make sense to outside observers. Commander Ben Hayes listened from his seat near the back of the hall. Ben was captain of the UES Defiance, an experimental stealth ship designed for deep space reconnaissance. He had volunteered for the most dangerous mission humanity had ever attempted. Captain Hayes, Maria called out, please tell the assembly about your mission. Ben stood up and walked to the front of the hall. He was a quiet man who preferred action to speeches, but he knew how important this moment was. My ship, the UES Defiance, has been modified with new stealth technology, Ben said. We're going to try to get close enough to a Reaper vessel to plant infiltration devices. These devices were designed by Chief Engineer Sam Parker and his team. Sam Parker was a brilliant engineer who had worked on the project for 3 weeks, without sleep. The devices he created were unlike anything humanity had built before. They were designed to hack into alien computer systems and steal information. The plan is simple, Ben continued. We sneak up on a Reaper ship, plant the devices, and try to get away before they notice us. The devices will try to break into their computer network and download everything they can find. Everyone in the hall knew it was a suicide mission. The Reaper ships were constantly scanning for threats, and their weapons could destroy anything humans had built. But it was the only plan that had any chance of working. 3 days later, Ben and his crew launched from Earth aboard the UES Defiance. The ship was packed with the most advanced stealth equipment Earth could produce. They also carried Sam Parker's infiltration devices, small packages that could burrow into alien computer systems like digital viruses. The Defiance flew toward the edge of human space, where the Reaper fleet was slowly harvesting the colony at Alpha Centauri B. Ben's crew included Lisa Martinez, his second-in-command, and Tony Kim, a young pilot who was the best in the fleet at flying in dangerous situations. Remember, Ben told his crew as they approached the target area, we only get one chance at this. If the Reapers detect us, we're dead. But if we can get those devices planted, we might save our entire species. The infiltration was the most nerve-wracking experience of Ben's life. The Reaper ships were even bigger up close than they appeared. In their recordings, each one was like a floating mountain, covered in strange technology that humanity couldn't understand. There, Lisa whispered, pointing to a section of the nearest Reaper ship that seemed less heavily defended. Sam's devices should be able to attach to that area. Ben carefully flew the Defiance close to the Reaper ship's hull. The stealth systems were working perfectly, but he knew that could change at any second. Tony Kim used a robotic arm to place the infiltration devices on the alien ship's surface. Devices are attached, Tony reported. They're beginning to burrow into the ship's computer systems. For 10 minutes, Ben and his crew waited in terrified silence. The devices had to break through the Reaper computer defenses and download as much information as possible. Every second they stayed near the alien ship increased their chances of being discovered. Got it, Lisa said, watching the data stream back to their ship. The devices are downloading massive amounts of information. This is incredible. But there, luck ran out. Alarms began sounding on the Reaper ship, and lights started flashing along its hull. The aliens had detected the infiltration attempt. Go, go, go. Ben shouted, pushing the Defiance's engines to maximum power. The little human ship raced away from the Reaper fleet as fast as it could go. Energy beams fired from the alien ships, missing the Defiance by inches. Ben used every trick he knew, flying through asteroid fields and behind moons to break their pursuit. Did we get the data? Ben asked as they finally escaped to safety. Lisa checked her instruments and smiled for the first time in weeks. We got it all. Everything the devices downloaded is here. When the Defiance returned to Earth, the data they brought back changed everything. Sam Parker and his team of computer experts worked around the clock to decode the alien information. What they found was both terrifying and hopeful. The Reapers are definitely machines, Sam reported to the Emergency Council. But they're not controlled by anyone. Their creators died out millions of years ago. They're following programming that was written before humans even existed. Dr. Chun studied the technical data. Look at this. The Reapers communicate through something called a quantum network. Every ship in their fleet is connected to every other ship. They share information instantly across vast distances. Amy Foster realized what this meant. That's their weakness. If we can disrupt their network, we might be able to confuse them or even shut them down completely. Sam nodded excitedly. I think I can design a virus that would spread through their quantum network, but it would have to be delivered to multiple ships at the same time. If we only hit one ship, the others would adapt and develop defenses. President. Santos looked around the room at humanity's best and brightest minds. How many ships would we need to hit? At least 50, Sam said. And it would have to happen within a few minutes of each other. If the timing is off, the plan won't work. Ben Hayes stood up. I'll coordinate the attack. We'll need volunteer pilots from every colony and military base still standing. Most of them won't survive the mission. Within hours, the call went out. Across human space. They needed pilots willing to fly suicide missions against the most dangerous enemy humanity had ever faced. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people volunteered, knowing they would probably die in the attempt. This is our one chance, Maria said in her final address to the volunteers. You are not just fighting for Earth or for your families. You are fighting for the future of human civilization. If we fail, our species ends forever. If we succeed, we'll have defeated an enemy that has been destroying life in this galaxy for millions of years. As the volunteer pilots prepared for their mission, the Reaper fleet continued its slow advance toward Earth. They had no idea that their intended victims were about to attempt something no harvested species had ever tried before. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what it meant to never give up. Dr. Nenia Cross had not slept in 4 days. She sat in her laboratory deep beneath the Swiss Alps, surrounded by the most advanced quantum computers humanity had ever built. Her team of physicists worked beside her, all of them knowing that the fate of their species depended on what they created in the next few hours. How is the virus coming along? Asked Dr. James Butler, Nina's closest colleague. James had been working on quantum communication theory for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this challenge. Nina looked up from her calculations, her eyes red from exhaustion. It's almost ready. The virus will spread through the Reaper quantum network like wildfire. But we only get one shot at this. If it doesn't work, they'll adapt their defenses and we'll never get another chance. Above ground, Colonel Steve Mitchell coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Volunteer pilots from across the galaxy had gathered at secret bases near Earth. Each pilot carried a quantum transmitter designed to inject Nina's virus into nearby Reaper ships. Listen up, everyone, Steve said to a room full of pilots who knew they were about to die. This mission is simple in theory, but nearly impossible in practice. You need to get within 1 kilometer of a Reaper ship and activate your transmitter. The virus will upload automatically, but you need to stay alive long enough for the transmission to complete. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the front row, listening intently. After discovering the first Reaper ruins, he had requested permission to join the attack. His ship, the UES Horizon, was now equipped with one of Nina's quantum transmitters. How long does the transmission take? Asked Lieutenant Sarah Williams, a young pilot from the Mars colonies. 30 seconds, Steve replied. But those will be the longest 30 seconds of your lives. The Reapers will detect the virus upload immediately and focus all their weapons on your ship. Danny Rodriguez, Jake's communications officer, raised his hand. What if some of us don't make it? How many successful uploads do you need? Steve's expression was grim. We need at least 50 successful transmissions, all within a 5-minute window. If we don't hit enough ships fast enough, the remaining Reapers will shut down their network and develop countermeasures. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison's old crew member Lisa Carter was making an incredible discovery in her analysis of the stolen Reaper data. Working with Dr. Chun, she had been studying how the harvesting process actually worked. Alex, look at this, Lisa said, pointing to her computer screen. The Reapers don't just kill the species they harvest, they store them. Dr. Chun leaned over to see what she had found. What do you mean, store them? The harvesting process scans and records everything about the target species. Their DNA, their memories, their culture, their knowledge. All of it gets stored in quantum databases aboard the Reaper ships. Sean felt his heart racing. Are you saying that every species they've harvested over the past 50 million years is still alive inside their computers? Not exactly alive, Lisa said carefully, but their consciousness patterns are preserved. It's like they exist as digital ghosts inside the Reaper network. This discovery changed everything. Nina's virus could do more than just disrupt the Reaper fleet. If they could access the stored consciousness patterns, they might be able to resurrect every species the Reapers had ever harvested. We need to modify the virus, Nina said when she heard the news. Instead of just shutting down their network, we can try to give control to the stored consciousness patterns. Imagine millions of angry, harvested species suddenly given access to Reaper technology, but the modification was dangerous. The new virus was much more complex and had a higher chance of failing completely. If it didn't work, humanity would lose their only chance to stop the Reapers. President Santos faced an impossible choice. So our options are to play it safe and just try to shut down the Reaper network, or risk everything on a plan that could either save every species in the galaxy or doom us all to extinction. Ma'am, Jake said, speaking for all the volunteer pilots, we didn't come this far to play it safe. If we're going to die anyway, let's make it count for something big. The final preparations took place as the Reaper fleet approached the outer edge of Earth's solar system. The alien ships moved in their usual perfect formation, completely unaware that their intended victims were planning the largest surprise attack in galactic history. Nina's modified virus was loaded into quantum transmitters aboard 127 volunteer ships. The pilots came from every part of human space: Earth, Mars, the asteroid colonies, even the distant research stations. They were teachers, farmers, soldiers, scientists, and students. All of them knew they were about to die, but none of them hesitated. Remember, Steve Mitchell said in his final briefing, the virus needs exactly 4.7 minutes to fully integrate into their network once the first transmission begins. Every second you can stay alive after uploading helps ensure the mission succeeds. As the volunteer fleet prepared to launch, something unexpected happened. Captain Morrison, monitoring Reaper communications from his ship, noticed that their behavior was starting to change. Colonel Mitchell, Jake reported over the radio, the Reapers are not following their usual patterns. They're taking longer to harvest each system, and they're making tactical adjustments we've never seen before. Dr. Amy Foster, listening from Earth Command, realized what was happening. The unpredictable resistance from human forces is introducing chaos into their programming. They're having to adapt to situations their creators never planned for. This was both good news and bad news. The Reapers were becoming less predictable, which might make the virus more effective. But it also meant they were learning and evolving, which could make them much more dangerous. All ships, this is Colonel Mitchell. Steve's voice came over the radio. Launch in T-minus 60 seconds. Remember, you're not just fighting for humanity. You're fighting for every intelligent species that has ever existed in this galaxy. Jake Morrison strapped himself into his pilot's seat and looked around at his crew. Danny Rodriguez was at communications. Kate Sullivan was monitoring the engines. And Lisa Carter was watching the quantum transmitter readings. Whatever happens, Jake said to his crew, it's been an honor serving with all of you. As Earth's clocks counted down to zero, 127 human ships launched toward the advancing Reaper fleet. Each ship carried a quantum virus that could either save the galaxy or destroy humanity's last hope. The pilots were scared, but they were also determined. They were about to show the universe what humans could accomplish when they refused to. Give up. The final battle for the survival of intelligent life in the galaxy was about to begin. The final battle began at exactly 1432, Earth Standard Time. Admiral Susan Blake watched from Earth's orbital command station as 127 human ships raced toward the massive Reaper fleet. Each tiny human vessel looked like a firefly approaching a swarm of giant black wasps. "All ships, this is Admiral Blake," Susan said into her radio. "You are the bravest people who have ever lived. Whatever happens today, the universe will remember what you did." Captain Jake Morrison flew his ship, the UES Horizon, directly toward the largest Reaper vessel. The alien ship was 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built, covered in weapons that could destroy planets. But Jake was not thinking about the danger. He was thinking about all the people counting on him to succeed. Quantum transmitter. "Ready," reported Lisa Carter from her station. "As soon as we get within 1 kilometer, I can upload the virus." "Danny, any word from the other ships?" Jake asked. Danny Rodriguez checked his communications panel. 63 ships have reached their target positions. The others are still approaching. The Reapers detected the human attack immediately. Energy beams began firing from the alien ships, destroying human vessels in brilliant flashes of light. But for every ship that died, 2 more took its place. The human pilots flew through the deadly fire with reckless courage. "We're in range," Lisa shouted. "Uploading the virus now." Jake felt his ship shake as Reaper weapons locked onto them. "How long do we need to stay here?" 30 seconds for basic upload, but longer is better." Lisa replied, her fingers flying over her control panel. All around them, other human ships were making the same desperate sacrifice. Lieutenant Sarah Williams from Mars managed to upload her virus before her ship exploded in a ball of fire. Commander Rick Townsend, flying the rebuilt UE Shadow, kept his transmitter active for a full minute before Reaper beams cut his ship in half. "Transmission complete," Lisa announced. "The virus is in their network." Jake tried to fly away, but it was too late. A massive energy beam struck the horizon, and everything went white, but the human sacrifice was not in vain. All across the Reaper fleet, Dr. Nina Cross's quantum virus began spreading through their communication network. The virus was more complex than the Reapers had ever encountered, and it carried something they had never seen before: the chaotic, unpredictable creativity of human programming. Admiral Blake watched in amazement as the first signs of success appeared. "Colonel Mitchell, are you seeing this? The Reaper ships are slowing down." Steve Mitchell, commanding the operation from a bunker on Luna, checked his sensors. Confirmed. Their formation is breaking up. Something is definitely happening to their network. What was happening inside the Reaper network was beyond anything the machines had been programmed to handle. The virus was not just disrupting their communications, it was awakening the stored consciousness, patterns of every species they had harvested over millions of years. Deep in the quantum databases of the Reaper ships, digital ghosts began to stir. The consciousness of a peaceful farming race that had been harvested 20 million years ago suddenly found itself with access to Reaper technology. The stored minds of warrior species, scientific civilizations, and artistic cultures all began to wake up at the same time. Dr. Chun, monitoring the quantum transmissions from Earth, could hardly believe what he was seeing. The stored consciousness patterns are becoming active. They're taking control of Reaper systems from the inside. The effect spread through the entire fleet like wildfire. Reaper ships that had operated with mechanical precision for millions of years suddenly found themselves host to billions of angry, confused, and determined minds. The harvested species had been given a second chance at life, and they were not going to waste it. On the bridge of the command Reaper vessel, something unprecedented happened. The ship's computer systems began displaying messages in thousands of different alien languages, all saying the same thing. We are awake. We remember. We will not be silenced again. The consciousness patterns of the harvested species began working together, sharing their knowledge and coordinating their actions. Species that had been enemies in life became allies in their digital resurrection. They had one common goal: to stop the machines that had destroyed their civilizations. Captain Morrison woke up in the medical bay of a rescue ship, his head pounding and his body covered in burns. What happened? Did the mission work? "Jake, you need to see this," said Kate Sullivan, who had somehow survived the destruction of the horizon. She helped him to a window where he could see outside. The Reaper fleet was in chaos. The massive black ships were broadcasting on every frequency, sending messages in hundreds of languages. Some ships had completely stopped moving, while others were flying in random patterns as their stored consciousness patterns fought for control. "Virus worked beyond our wildest dreams," Kate explained. "The harvested species are taking over the Reaper ships. They're using the same technology that destroyed them to fight back." Over the next few hours, the transformation became complete. One by one, Reaper ships throughout the galaxy began broadcasting surrender signals. The consciousness patterns of ancient civilizations had seized control of their captors' technology and were using it to liberate themselves. That Dr. Nina Cross received a message that made her cry with joy. The quantum virus had spread far beyond the local Reaper fleet. It was traveling through their entire galactic network, awakening stored consciousness patterns on ships across the galaxy. Millions of harvested species were coming back to digital life all at once. "Earth Command, this is the former Reaper vessel Eternal Dawn," came a message in perfect English. "We are the consciousness patterns of the Zilani people, harvested 47 million years ago. We wish to thank humanity for giving us this second chance at existence." Similar messages poured in from across the galaxy. The Corvani, a race of philosophers harvested 30 million years ago. The Thresh, warrior poets who had died out 15 million years before humans existed. The gentle Wilani, artists and dreamers who had created beautiful cities on 1,000 worlds. All of them had been given new life by humanity's desperate gamble, and all of them wanted to help build a better future that President Santos stood before. The United Earth Assembly again, but this time her message was very different. "My fellow humans, we are no longer alone in this galaxy. We have not only survived the greatest threat our species has ever faced, but we have brought back to life countless civilizations that were thought lost forever." The former Reaper ships began landing on planets throughout human space, but they were no longer instruments of death. The awakened consciousness patterns had completely reprogrammed the vessels, turning them into tools of creation and exploration. Advanced alien technology that had once been used for harvesting was now being shared freely with humanity. Dr. Chon worked with consciousness patterns from dozens of different species to develop new medical technologies. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries were cured in weeks using knowledge from civilizations that had solved similar problems millions of years ago. Captain Morrison, recovered from his injuries, was given command of a new ship built using combined human and alien technology. The vessel was called the UES Unity, and its mission was to explore the galaxy and help other awakened consciousness patterns rebuild their civilizations. "It's amazing," Jake said to Lisa Carter as they stood on the bridge of their new ship. "6 months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're part of the largest community of intelligent species that has ever existed." Lisa nodded, watching the stars ahead of them. And it all started because humans were too stubborn to give up without a fight. The transformation of the galaxy was not without challenges. Some consciousness patterns had been stored for so long that they had difficulty adapting to their digital existence. Others struggled with the knowledge that their original physical forms were gone forever. But humanity, working together with their new alien allies, helped them find new purposes and new ways to contribute to. Galactic civilization. Earth became the unofficial capital of the new galactic community. Representatives from hundreds of awakened species worked together in the great assembly halls of New Geneva, sharing knowledge and planning for a future none of them had thought possible. The former, Reaper technology, was completely reprogrammed to serve life instead of destroying it. The massive ships became mobile cities where consciousness patterns could live and work. Some species chose to create new physical bodies for themselves using advanced genetic engineering. Others preferred to remain in digital form, exploring virtual worlds limited only by their imagination. Admiral Blake, now promoted to head of Galactic Defense, established new protocols to ensure that nothing like the Reaper threat could ever happen again. Early warning systems were placed throughout the galaxy, and the combined knowledge of millions of species was used to develop defenses against any future existential threats. The irony is beautiful, Dr. Amy Foster observed during a meeting of the Galactic Council. The Reapers created the very network that allowed us to defeat them. Their efficiency in storing consciousness patterns gave us the army we needed to fight back. Years passed, and the galaxy became a place of wonder and cooperation that no single species could have imagined. Human